My name's Anna. I am a white female in their mid-20s. My pronouns are she and her. I have sort of mousy brown hair, which is slicked back in a bun. I'm wearing a black polo neck and I'm sitting in my parents' living room. I am a stage designer. I have just done my own show, so I'm also in the process of discovering other things. So I thought I'd just start off with like a timeline first. Hopefully you can all see that. So essentially, pre-2014, I took part in loads of participation stuff at my local theatre, which is Northern Stage. So I did all the summer schools, and then I did the Juice Festival, if anyone can remember the Juice Festival, which was a sort of half-term kids thing that happened around the city. And then I did a drama group outside of school as well. And I also discovered that I absolutely loved art at school. I should caveat that with like, I can't paint or draw to save my life. So I discovered using installations and transforming spaces as an art form. And then in 2014, I joined Young Company at Northern Stage, and I scored the mega part of a non-speaking role, which meant that I got to design the show as a sort of payoff for getting a role that didn't speak. And then 2015 to 2018, I went to university at Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. And during that time, I also became an assistant designer to two designers, one Helen Coyston, who's based in London, and then one who is Jen McGinley. And she's sort of based everywhere, but I worked for her in Newcastle. And then in 2018, just after I'd graduated, I got my first professional show at Live Theatre. And then from then and onwards, I started just designing shows professionally. If you can see, sort of like in COVID time, it was very quiet. I did have some jobs, but they were cancelled. But I did join Scene Change, which is a movement and a group of designers to improve working rights for designers. It's really interesting. We have loads of like interesting work that explains what a designer's role is and all the different like jobs that they do that you might not think that they do. And then in 2021, just as sort of COVID was calming down, I started working for TV and film as well. But I have to say that my first love is theatre, definitely. And then at the beginning of this year, I produced and wrote my first ever show. So moving on. So the first show that I designed, that I designed, that's spelt wrong, but we'll pass, it's fine. For Young Company was Heritage by David James. It was part of the National Theatre Connections. And during that time, I learned to analyse the text and use cultural and historical references to inform the design. And I had to sort of learn on the job how to communicate my ideas to the team that were going to execute the design. And for you good lookers, I am the one in the multicoloured tights on stage. Not speaking, but that's fine, I designed it. At university, we did lots of speculative design projects, so that's like made up projects. We were given a script and a director to work with, and then a theatre that we had to pretend that we were designing for. We learned how to make model boxes, which are like tiny versions of the stage, which are 1 to 25 scale. We learned how to draw ground plans, draw costume designs. And then in my end of second year, I also designed for the musical theatre production called M. So yeah, that was great. But I would say that I'm a massive advocate for university not always being the right option for everyone, and that you can learn these skills outside of university. And if any of you want to know what skills you learn in university, I'm always up for like an email or whatever, and I can take you through whatever we learn and where you might be able to learn those skills elsewhere. The most useful things I found at university was the final assessment. Making friends in other departments was a massive one because it meant that I could pick people's brains. So stage managers, I could ask about health and safety. Production assistants, I could ask how they like made different things. I learned alternative ways of communicating ideas. There's not one right way of communicating your idea. I also learned to reflect on each project and to learn from each project. And then I also assisted. So in the final assessment, what we had to do was make a 5-year plan, which actually I'm a massive advocate for. I think it's really helpful to have a plan, but to know that you don't have to stick to it by any means. I think I've like done one thing out of this 5-year plan, but through that I did like know where I wanted to go. And through the 5-year plan, we had to back it up with evidence. We had to go and talk to people who were doing what we wanted to do and find out their route through. And so you could kind of like picture an end goal and then figure out loosely what your route to that end goal might be, but knowing full well that if you are on that route and then you discover that you like something else, that's totally fine and you can go off on that route. We also had to end up with online presence and basically like self-branding. So through that, I created a portfolio, like a portfolio pack, which is at the bottom of the screen. It's like a zine that features 2 projects that I've made. And then in that, I also put my CV, a couple of postcards that have photographs of some designs that I've done, and then a business card as well. I've found that theatres and people in general really like something like a hard copy, something to hold on to, because so much of our communication these days is over email or Zoom or, you know, that kind of thing, that actually it's really nice for people to have something to hold on to and refer back to. I also have a website. It's like totally out of date at the moment, and that is on my to-do list, but it is helpful to have. It's actually helpful for me to have because it's sort of like an online portfolio and an online CV, so I don't have to carry those things around with me all the time. I can sort of just refer back to them. So yeah, when the people I assisted I've talked to you about, so Helen Cloyston was based in London, but the big thing that I assisted on was Antigone, which was a national tour and started in Halifax, and I got to actually cover her for a week. So that was like very much learning on the job, but really big. I learned how to sort of put my foot down a little bit and have difficult conversations. I also learned that I was definitely on the right track and I loved it, and got to see the show go from dress rehearsal to opening night and see all the audience's reactions, which was really good. And then Jen McGinley, I assisted on Ella Gray, which was a young company production at Northern Stage. I also had to cover her on a couple of days, so sort out costumes and then sourcing of props and set as well. So some of the shows I've designed. In the top left, that's sort of my first show that was professional, but I didn't earn enough to call it professional. But that was the Untitled at the Tristan Bates Theatre. That was with Goldsmith's MA Musical Theatre class. And then these are all pre-COVID. So Christmas Crackers was my actual first professional show at Live Theatre. Then you've got Where Do We Belong, which was Young Company. And then Chicken Licken, a Tail Jam, which was at Gala Durham. And that was also a regional tour. And of course, how could I not say, I also designed When This Is Over and Flux, they both happened this year. So the career highlight has to be making my own show. I've never written anything in my life and I've never produced anything, but I found that because I'd worked enough within theatre and I had enough colleagues and friends that I could call upon and ask favours and advice, that I could do this. It was a bit fraught, but the biggest thing about it was actually being mentioned in the Houses of Parliament on International Women's Day. It's a big triumph. So I designed, wrote it and produced it, and I'm very proud. Thanks. A career, not failure, but toughie. was definitely Sucking Eggs, which was a couple of years ago, I think, at Alpha Betty. This was a mammoth of a project with a tiny, tiny budget. And what was difficult about this was that because of the budget, it meant that we had to kind of cut corners, which meant that we were just sort of combating challenge after challenge after challenge. So things like the cabinets were actually rotting from inside because we got them free from the hairdressers, and that was fine. What we knew was that we would have to get rid of them at the end of the show, and that, you know, the actors couldn't sit on them, but they could still open them and open the doors and that kind of thing. The big issue was with the floor. The floor we got from Alpha Betty was it was the wrong size, but you couldn't cut it to the right size easily because of the angle that the set was on and the angles that the seating banks were on. So because of the checkerboard pattern, it would make some people feel a little bit sort of seasick almost if we didn't sort that out. So what I ended up doing was printing out the checkerboard floor in 1:25 scale, as though I was going to put it on in the model box, which is the bottom left picture, and then cut like jigsawed bits out so that I could move bits around and then stick them on the other end. And it turned out pretty good, I think. But I have learned that small budgets do pose problems and do pose times in which I need to sit down with the director and the creative team and say, I think we might need to rethink what you're wanting from this. Yeah. So my big tips and tricks that I've learned over the years is to go to the theatre and to talk about what you've seen with friends and colleagues. And along those lines, go to art exhibitions and watch whatever you want and read whatever you want. Just take all the culture in. I'm a massive hoarder in objects and in thoughts. So like one day it'll all come in handy. On that, I've said build your own office. And that, what I mean by that is your office of colleagues. So go out and find the creatives that you feel that you gel with and that you love and respect and appreciate, and ask them things all the time when you're working on jobs as well. Ask them things, and then reflect on every project. I've said already, I actually tend to journal after every project to make sure that I know that I'm learning from everything. I'm still pretty fresh in my career, so I'm very much always learning. Whether it's how to communicate ideas differently, or whether it's how to handle budgets differently, or if there's a new shop I've discovered that stocks really cool items that would help. I would say work to your key skills, which kind of goes with the reflect on every project. Learn how you communicate best, learn how you work best, and then work to that. And on that note, learn to procrastinate well. I've put that, but it sort of does myself a bit of an injustice. I know that I put things off. And so in order to combat that, I procrastinate by watching things along the right themes of the thing that I'm working on, or I'll read things or go to exhibitions that will inform my design in the end. So when I do actually sit down to do the work, I get it done quicker because I've procrastinated well. And then the other thing is do something else, because you get so caught up in this bubble that you need to go and not spend time in the theatre and not spend time in the creative industry. Go and have a meal somewhere, go on a walk, that kind of thing.
I'm Claire Dupree, my pronouns are she, her. I'm a white woman wearing glasses, a burgundy hoodie, have blondie brownish hair, and I'm sat in my spare room, otherwise known as the NARC office, with a background of photos from my holidays, just to keep me grounded. I'm the editor of NARC magazine, which is this. It's a alternative music and culture magazine for the Northeast. I started it in 2006, which makes me really old. And basically I kind of began it because I didn't really feel that there was anything else out there at that sort of time that championed Northeast creatives. Particularly at that time, it was more about music, but certainly has grown to include theatre and comedy and art, film, lots of other stuff that kind of happens in the Northeast. And it's usually along a kind of more alternative, experimental, unusual kind of edge. We like stuff that's a bit different and a bit that's just a bit kind of not the mainstream, and there's loads of it in the Northeast. So I didn't really feel that was being represented. So started a magazine about it, basically. Before that, I was working at the Chronicle and Journal as an advertising exec. So I sort of started in the dirty end of the publishing world. But I think that gave me a really good basis for understanding media as a whole. Because I worked in the industry, I understood what it took to create a publication, from how much money you needed to print it to all the other elements that went into it. So before I left the Chronicle to start NARC, I kind of worked really closely alongside lots of other different departments, and slightly sneakily, like after I'd put my my notice in, I all of a sudden got really interested in things like accounts that I didn't know how to do. So I sort of went to the accounts department and went, "Hi, can I sit with you and learn about how you do your job?" And they were like, all right, which nobody really twigged why. But learning from colleagues and learning from peers was really important at the beginning of my job, just because I was starting a magazine and I'd never done that before. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, didn't know how to do any of these things. So kind of had to rely on, figuring it out as I went along, more or less. But at that time, I also did some freelance work, which was all unpaid and just kind of really for experience. So I wrote for magazines like The Crack, wrote for the Journal Culture magazine, RIP, which they gave me my own page, which was about sort of local music. So that kind of helped to establish NARC a little bit. And in terms of education, I didn't go to uni. I went straight into work at 18 after I finished media and English at A-level. I don't have any formal qualifications apart from A-levels. I basically just kind of wanted to do it straight away and was a little impatient perhaps, but also was told at the time of being at uni that I didn't necessarily need a qualification unless I wanted to specialise. And that the thing I wanted to write about, which was, music and culture and that kind of stuff, was too fluffy and I didn't need any qualifications in it, which I'm glad I took that advice, because otherwise I probably would have been a politics student or something, and that would have been awful. So I kind of basically learned the processes of doing my job by doing it, really. Some of that was trial and error. Some of it was background information from other jobs. Some of it was working alongside people who knew what they were up to and knew what they were doing. I spent a lot of time at the very beginning, all the way through my career, really, going to gigs and events, meeting people, understanding who was who in the kind of music scene, kind of understanding how things worked, and just kind of always really learning about the ins and outs of what's going on. And that sort of networking is a bit of a dirty word, but that sort of thing is really interesting and really useful, and really it can go under the guise of socializing because that's pretty much what I did for about 3 years solid. I went to everything everywhere, and learned everything that there was to learn, and kind of got my face known a little bit, which I not mad keen on doing now, but at the beginning was very important for people to understand that NARC was an important and serious kind of thing. It wasn't something that was just going to disappear after 6 months, as I heard someone say at our launch party, holding the magazine in his hand, going, well, I'll give it 6 months before throwing it away. So saw him. So anyway, I'm kind of, as I say, always learning and working really closely with my writers teaches me to be a better editor. Working very closely alongside our NARC Academy students early in this year, which was a youth music project that we put together, actually I think made me a far better writer and made me much better at my job, because I was helping people to be good at theirs, and I really enjoyed that experience. And that sort of goes for musicians to some extent too. There's some of the work that I do with musicians, helping them to understand how to approach press and how to write press releases, or how to kind of get ahead musically on a promotional level kind of helps me to make sure I'm doing all I can to help them from the other side. So that's quite important for me and has become more so in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. So important skills for me include being things like super organized. I do have a plan, I'm afraid, sorry, but it is mainly just like all of the spreadsheets, just endless spreadsheets, because I'm not super organized. Nothing gets done. If it's not written down, it doesn't happen. So that's really important for me. But I have to also be very flexible. I have to be able to diversify. I have to write about stuff that other people don't want to write, basically, in a magazine. Not all the time. A lot of the stuff that I write is stuff that I really enjoy and I choose. But sometimes I have to write about things I know nothing about. So I have to be good at research, and I have to be kind of happy to learn, basically, pretty much all the time. I also run gigs and festivals. I learned how to do that basically by going to them, watching how they work, talking to musicians about what makes a good event, and then putting that research into practice. And the same with festivals, kind of really knowing how to treat a musician, how to, you know, give them what they need, as well as giving what audiences want out of an event as well. So in addition to NARC, if that wasn't enough, I also do some freelancing, mainly to earn money, because independent publishing isn't a money spinner, you may be surprised to learn. So I also do some work for another publisher, and I've kind of found a way to convert one of my passions into work. So I write about travel, which is a really exciting and enjoyable part of my life. And basically that means I write kind of travel guides and publications for another publisher, a handful of those a year. And that entails a lot of research and, unfortunately, no going on holiday, which is what I thought it would at the beginning. And just no, there's not enough time to go on holiday to write about going on holiday. You know, my freelancing work really came from making friends with people and staying in touch with them and doing things for them when they needed it done, and knowing that I could sort of call on them, or that they would call on me when they knew that there was something that was right on my street. When I first started writing, or when I first started in this kind of industry, I just spent loads of time doing the thing I wanted to do. For about a year, I only read music magazines. I love books. I read constantly, but I only read music magazines for an entire year, because that taught me all the things I loved and all the things I didn't love about music writing. And it taught me to kind of hone my style a little bit. So I thought that was a really important sort of skill. My best advice is just do it, do a lot of it. Read loads, write loads if you're interested in that. Learn from the things, you know, if you're interested in a particular industry, learn from it by going and seeing it in practice, live it and exist it. Network, sorry, but it's really important to just meet people, and be nice to people. Just nice goes a really, really long way, and people will remember you if you are able to just kind of, you know, be personable and helpful and polite and professional, and those are really important things to be, I think. Something that I think I wish I'd known at the very beginning was that everybody is still figuring it out, even 16 years into their career, as I am. I had some measure of confidence, I suppose, if only because I sort of quit my job that was relatively well paid and all for 2 years. But, you know, having confidence is really important. Following your dreams, having the confidence in your own ideas. And yeah, it's a kind of a big secret. No one really knows what they're doing when they first start out. And to an extent, we're all still figuring out and still learning. But I think being happy to be learning all the time is also really important. So yeah, as a famous sport company said, just do it. I hope that was useful.
Hello again, my name is Rachel Walsh. I'm predominantly a writer, director, and dramaturg. If you don't know what a dramaturg is, don't worry, nobody knows what it is. It basically means that I support artists and companies and creatives to create their work and make sure it's reaching their audiences in the way that they want it to. So that might be writers or devisers, whoever it might be. So yes, I am mostly interested in work which supports and champions women to take up space. And I actually didn't realise that I wanted to be a director until relatively late. So I was sort of 26, 27 before I realised that I wanted to be a director, which is not late in the grand scheme of things, but it can really feel like that, I think, if you you're around people who are, 18, 19, going to university and absolutely know what they want to do with their lives. It can be really tricky when, it takes you 10 years or even longer, any age, to sort of realise what it is that you want to do. So I knew that I wanted to work in theatre. And I was interested in writing, I was interested in telling stories, but I didn't... my family weren't kind of involved in theatre. I didn't sort of have any connections in the theatre industry at all. And so I think that can be really difficult. It feels like you just do not know the way to get in, basically. And so I did drama and script writing at university. I trained at Northumbria and did that. And then I just dotted around for a while doing jobs which had sort of nothing to do with theatre or the creative industries or anything that I wanted to do, really. But I ended up doing quite a lot of youth theatre work with the youth theatre that I'd been a member of. And I really enjoyed that. And sort of gradually over time, I started to realise, this is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in writing. I'm interested in directing. And I've always been really interested in comedy as well. But what I think is quite tricky is you always get asked why, or what's the reason, or what's the purpose. And I think you'll find this a lot in the creative industries. You've got an idea and you're always being asked to kind of interrogate it. Well, why? What do you want to say with this? Why is this important? And I never really had anything to say apart from, well, I like comedy, it's funny. And so what was a real sort of game changer for me was that I started doing improv classes just as kind of a hobby. And I realised that there would be a lot of women in the classes who would be taking part in these classes, but then that wouldn't translate at all to performance. So, you get these classes of predominantly women, but then I'd be often performing as the only woman in a troupe of men. And I got really interested in that. And I think there's a real sort of divide between men and women in the level of proficiency that we feel that we've got to be at before we'll just have a go at something. So it feels like men can feel like they're 50-60%, yeah, I'm all right at that, whereas I think women really feel like, oh god, we've got to be like 90% or higher, nearly perfect before we go out and do something and take a risk. And there's lots of reasons for that and that we feel like that, but I became really interested in that and how I could create a rehearsal room that is supportive and allows everyone, including women, to feel that they are able to take up space and take risks with their work. And so that was massive for me, because that wasn't a sort of conscious decision. I'm going to go to these improv classes and figure out that this is what my whole career is about. But that just suddenly clicked something completely for me, and suddenly I was much more able to articulate the work that I was interested in making, because I suddenly had this experience or this language to talk about it, and this thing that I was genuinely really passionate about. And I'm sure everybody's been in an interview situation where you're just saying whatever you think the interviewer wants to hear, but it's so insincere, and you're not convincing them. And then I just had this, I had this way of talking about what I was interested in, and I was genuinely interested, and I really thought I could make a difference. And it changed everything about kind of how I made work, and that was a real changing point in my career for me. And then from there, I went on. I did clowning. I did a 2-week intensive at the Gaulier School in France in clowning to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone. And so loads of the work that I was doing was influenced by improv and clowning. And what I'm always really interested in my career is just always learning and developing. And so through all that, I'd been working a lot with companies in the Northeast, and I sort of really started to build up a bit of a reputation in the Northeast, and was working with some brilliant companies, including Mortal Fools. But for me, it felt like I enjoyed the work that I was doing, but I'd hit it felt like a bit of a barrier in the Northeast of how far I could kind of get. And so I made the decision to go and do a directing MA at drama school. And I really have to emphasize that I do not think you have to go to drama school to be a director. If anybody feels that is a kind of barrier for them, like, I don't think it's essential. I think you can absolutely do the job without doing that. It felt like the right decision for me at the time, because it kind of got me out of my comfort zone again. And again, the networking, meeting different people, talking to them, all of those experiences, anywhere where you can get out and meet other people, talk to them about their jobs, talk to them about their experiences, you're always going to be learning and developing. And then from there, I was awarded the JMK Victoria Wood Bursary, and I was associate director on the Sorcerer's Apprentice at Northern Stage last Christmas. And so since then, I've just been doing kind of bits and pieces, some workshops. I was back working with Mortal Fools on a project quite recently. And so that's been really great. But I think for me, the most important thing has been just that it was just this total epiphany of, oh, this is why I'm interested in this work. And I think you will get asked, regardless of whether you're kind of working in theatre or another creative industry, you will keep getting asked, but why? Why is it important? Why is this different? And I think as soon as you kind of find out what that is, or what's interesting about the work that you want to make, or the path that you want to take, and what sets you apart from other people in that way, it totally changed things for me. As far as kind of career failures, I have them all the time. Like, I will always apply for things that I'm like, yes, I'm 100% going to get this, and then not even get a first round interview. I think you have got to really develop that sort of resilience, because you'll get rejected time and time again. And I think, just be really aware that this is, if this is what you want to do, that's going to happen, but you'll push through it if it's what you really want to do. And I think finally, my sort of tip would be just use your energy wisely. I think you end up kind of applying for a lot of things, going for things, putting a lot of energy out into the universe, in the hopes that you'll get something back. And just try as much as you can to make sure that energy is going into a good place. I think I maybe apply for, on average, like 2 things a week, which is a significant amount of my time if I want to put a lot of good stuff into that application. So just being aware of what's taking your time and thinking, is this going to be worthwhile? If I know I'm absolutely not going to get anywhere with it, is it better to put that time into, a different application, or learning a new skill or something like that? Or even just, having a night off. Having a night off is a perfectly valid use of energy too. So just being aware of that energy and where it's going, because you end up using a lot of it to get where you want.
I'm Craig, and I'm a late 20s man. I'm tall with short dark hair. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm currently sitting in my kitchen wearing a white t-shirt. I am production manager for Mortal Fools, as well as a sound and lighting technician. So production manager means that I lead on the production and technical side. So that's the lighting, the sound, stage management, health and safety, all the interesting stuff, and just sort of manage that and go to meetings and work with budgets, with sort of the productions and all the events. So I left school in 2012 after doing GCSEs. Again, didn't really sort of know up until then that I was going to stumble across and work in the creative industry. I kind of had a fair sort of interest in going to gigs. So I was going to go and do a music course at Newcastle College, and then ended up going to Gated College, doing a level 3 stage and media production course, which was brilliant because, again, it sort of gave me a very sort of broad aspect on, again, the sort of lighting, sound, stage management, even set design, really, which, again, is very, very many sort of offshoots of what I do, and obviously I don't want to step on Anna's toes because she is brilliant in what she does. So I did that for 2 years, and part of that course was going to live theatre, which again is sort of how I got in there. But as well, sort of part of the 2-year course, I stage managed the NTC show at Whitley Bay Playhouse it was, and met Kiz, who is the artist director, CEO of Mortal Fools, or back 8-9 years ago, it was Tyne Valley Youth Theatre. So basically just got chatted to Kiz and sort of showed an interest and was just looking for any sort of experience, or because I hadn't done anything like this before, any worked with any sort of drama companies or anything. So I was sort of fresh into the whole world that I was sort of leading myself into, and started just going into doing a few sort of youth theatre projects with Kiz, which again, not knowing sort of 8 years down the line that I would be doing the role that I'm doing now. So going back to college, so I did 2-year course, which was brilliant. Get many opportunities going to work with live theatre once and twice a week. So again, sort of working on loads of different productions and events and gigs there, and as well as working on all the sort of dance and theatre productions at Gateshead College. So from that, I then went to do it. Well, initially it was a year's apprenticeship with live theatre. So again, just got that by basically just showing that I just wanted loads of sort of experience, and just showing that I was willing to start doing a little Saturday job there when there was sort of get-ins and get-outs and doing stuff like that. And then they then offered me an apprenticeship, which was brilliant. So I ended up doing that for 2 years, and then ended up after the 2 years apprenticeship being technician at Live for 6 years. So again, it all sort of just snowballed out of nowhere, starting back in 2012, not knowing what I was going to do, and not sort of, again, like Rachel was saying before, not really having anyone within my family or sort of friendship group that I'd ever done this before. So it was kind of a bit of a scary prospect, but I definitely wouldn't turn back the time really. So again, I work contracted with Mortal Fools, but as well I freelance with, like what said, the 620, who are a music-based theatre company, and I've had the opportunity to go to Edinburgh Fringe. So that was back in 2016, I think it was. So the Edinburgh Fringe Festivals, that was working with 2 shows up there, which was an amazing experience. Again, meeting many different people from around the world, and chatting to, as everyone before me just said, chatting to loads of people, getting many people's experiences and opinions on stuff, and just sort of making loads of contacts really. And again, freelance-wise, I've travelled many sort of different theatres around the country, working on sort of gigs or events or theatre productions in many various sort of roles. But so yeah, it's been, as I say, it's been a fun 10 years, but definitely wouldn't turn back the time really. So one thing that I would probably say is, like I've just been saying there, like many people have as well, is just get out there, see as many things as you can, act sort of like interested in everything, be passionate. And one best thing that I do is make lists, because if I try and regain all that information in my brain, I'll definitely forget something. So making lists of any sort of tasks or jobs or anything like that. But as well, so you've kind of got to be flexible, because things will change last minute, and you've just got to sort of work like that really.
I'm a 30-year-old white woman with long red hair, sitting in a very boring looking meeting room with a white t-shirt on. I'm a co-founder. I founded the company with my partner Henry, and we specialize in branding, marketing, websites and web apps. So yeah, we get to work with some really cool businesses such as Mortal Fools, and we work with a lot of tech companies too, and we've worked with a couple of people that put on festivals to do their branding and websites, so we get to work on all sorts of things. But yeah, I'll get into sort of my story, I'm going to go through it in a little bit of chronological order. So when I was younger, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I enjoyed drama at school. I enjoyed art at school. I enjoyed all the creative subjects, but I was also really good at science and maths and things. So that didn't really dictate where I was going to go in life. But yeah, when I left school, I did an internship at a theatre. I took a year out when I left school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if university was the right thing for me. This is the inside of the Theatre Royal in Bury St Edmunds in the town that I grew up in. And I did a 6-month unpaid internship there. And I did have a part-time job at the same time. And I was obviously living at home with my parents. So I was very lucky to be able to take that, even though it wasn't a paid opportunity. But yeah, that sort of taught me how to work in an office, a bit about what marketing was. But obviously, as all of you guys know who work in theatre, sometimes it's not easy to sell tickets. So I was working with the marketing officer to promote the shows and things like that. So that was great. And I think that sort of led me to think, yeah, a career in marketing is what I want to do. This is some very vintage looking photos of me. So I graduated 8 years ago now. I went to Lancaster University and I did film and cultural studies, which I absolutely loved. I didn't take the practical approach because I didn't really like group work. So I did the theoretical side of it. And while I was there, this picture in the top right is me with, so Lancaster was a collegiate university, and you could be voted on to like a group of students that would run events and things like that. And I became a welfare officer, and I also became a cross-campus officer for welfare, which meant I got to run welfare campaigns for the whole university and got to speak with all the welfare students from other colleges to do that. And in a way that was kind of a bit of marketing because I got to design campaigns and things like that. So that was awesome. And so that's me handing in my dissertation, by the way, in the bottom right, with my friend Matt. And that's obviously me on my graduation day. So before I actually graduated, I thought I wanted to stay on and be a welfare officer at the Students' Union, so you could like run and stay there for a year in a paid role, basically, to do what I'd essentially been doing as a cross-campus officer for welfare. And I tried really hard. I went through the campaign, but I didn't get voted in, and I was absolutely devastated. And this was a big learning curve for me because I tried so hard and I thought, right, I deserve this, but I didn't get it. And I thought, right, what am I going to do now? So I knew I liked marketing. So I went into a marketing job at my university, came up that I was graduating from. So just a marketing assistant role. That was amazing. I loved it. Obviously, it was just an entry-level position. And it wasn't as creative as I might have liked, but I really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot from my manager. And one of the things, I guess, that I learned from that first role is no matter how junior you are, if you show you're really passionate about something, they might give you responsibility and you'll get to learn a lot more than you might otherwise. So after a year, my boss was like sending me to meetings with all of these really high up people in the university and just letting me crack on, which was amazing. But I then moved on to the University of Cumbria because I saw a senior marketing officer position come up there. So I went there and I got to work on the rebrand for the university. I got to organise video shoots, photography shoots, work with the academics to advertise their courses and things like that, which was great. But universities are absolutely huge institutions, and whilst I was learning a lot, I really wanted to be a bit more creative in my role. So we got to do the campaigns, but all the people above us were basically making the real decisions about what actually went out. So I decided, this is cutting a very long story short, but I met my partner Henry at university, and he's a software engineer. So he was building websites in an agency while I was in this marketing role. And we basically decided that we were going to both quit our jobs, our nice, comfortable, well-paid jobs, and set up our own business, which is Vida now. And we sold all of our stuff and decided to freelance and travel in the camper van for a few years. So we went on 2 5-month trips in both the summers, and this is my camper van Kevin in Spain, and yeah, various locations around Europe. I thought I'd chuck some nice photos in here for you. I think that was in Croatia. And yeah, this is in, I don't even know where that is, but anyway, this is Henry on his laptop doing work, and it looks very idyllic, but it was actually really tough to try and get work in as a new business, being abroad, living in a van, looking in cafes for Wi-Fi and things like that. And it was an amazing experience, but it definitely taught us a lot of resilience and determination to do what we wanted to do. So we ended up settling in Newcastle, and we did manage to get more work in, and we thought, right, you know, what do we do from here? So yeah, the two of us just got a little office here and went on an accelerator program that NatWest was putting on, and we learned so much about running a business, from like how to, you know, what to use to do finances, tax, like all of the boring stuff, as well as the more fun stuff, which I love doing, which is obviously the marketing and branding and all of that stuff. So we were kind of honing what we were doing there. And to jump forward to now, we're a team of 10, which we've built up over the last 2.5 years. And even though you know, we're doing absolutely incredible work now, it hasn't always been easy. So I think I just wanted to, I know I don't want to put a downer on it, but basically things aren't linear, as everyone here has said. You do have failures, but also if you try hard and you're determined and you kind of find your passion, you will get to where you want to be. We get to work on some amazing projects. So we did, we actually won an award with Mortal Falls, which is one of my career highlights, and I'm not just saying it. We won a business and creative partnership at the General Cultural Awards, so that was amazing last year. And we get to work on lots of very cool projects. We work on Soccer Aid for UNICEF, so we get to do all the campaigns for that and get lots of photos of celebrities doing silly things to raise money for UNICEF and things like that. But if you want to know more, you can take a look at our website afterwards, because all of the case studies are on there. But yeah, these are just a couple of things that I thought I would finish on. Everyone said it already. It's all about collaboration. Find like-minded people that are interested in the same things as you, or people that might have been doing something for a few years longer. When I was working at the university, I really looked up to my boss, and she was really, really understanding when I was asking her probably very, very stupid questions. So yeah, that kind of links into the last one there. It's okay to ask for help, and I still ask for help. I have a lot of friends that run businesses now through being on the NatWest Accelerator program, and we still meet up. Like, everyone needs someone else to speak to about things that are happening. So yeah, find other people that you can chat to. And yeah, the last one, you can make a creative career out of your interests, which obviously is the purpose of this event, to speak about that. But I don't think that if someone had told me 3 years ago that I would be making a go of this business and it would be going really well, that I might have fully believed them. So I think, you know, if you love something, you can do it, and we get to do some like really, really fun creative things every day. And it's not always, I think a couple of people have said it, it's not always necessarily the projects that you want to be doing. So obviously we do have to take on some projects that we may not ideally want to do, but most of the time we're doing the stuff we love, and with a group of people that really get on well and do what we love doing. So I think, yeah, creative industries are, like, obviously we're all biased, but amazing. And I would 100%, if you want to create a creative career, absolutely go for it. And yeah, if anyone has any questions or anything, like, please feel free to email me or send me a message or something if they want to know any more information or anything else. But yeah, thank you very much.
I'm Scott Forbes. I work for Gosforth Civic Theatre in Gosforth. I'm a 35-year-old white man sat in our dressing room here at Gosforth Civic Theatre in front of our banner behind me, which I designed. We are run by Liberdagi Community Development Trust, who are a charity who work with people with learning disabilities and autism. The charity itself has been going since 2003. We took the build on in 2016, and I joined the organisation in 2017 after leaving Sage Gated. I'm the example, I guess, on this panel of somebody who literally doesn't know what they want to do, even to this day. No, I joined I joined the creative industry kind of late on, so I didn't join Sage until I was 29. I graduated university with a extremely useful degree in English language in 2008. So I was tossed out of Newcastle University in 2008 with a all bleary-eyed into a global recession and trying to look for work and putting into search engines, jobs which kind of required that degree, and the only one came up was a subtitlist for ITV Northeast, which, given the uptake in automated captions, is probably able to dodged, I think, on that one. I then basically tried to get a job anywhere, just to kind of find somewhere. I ended up working for a company called Eager, not creative at all, but they did run contracts at the time, which were government contracts to give people free insulation and heating, which you don't see much around now, but at the time it was actually a thing. So we learned loads there, but was desperate. It was a call center job. I was desperate to get off the phone. I bounced around that company basically through a couple of takeovers for the best part of 7 years, I guess. So it wasn't until kind of the last year I was there where I took part in kind of co-ran a communications initiative within the organization. Very dry, but it actually showed me what I wanted to do. I really enjoyed leading a project, kind of being creative with language to kind of communicate within the company. At the time, a entry-level job came up with Sage Gateshead. I was at the time living on the quayside, so I wasn't very far from it anyway, but I've been applying for jobs on and off at Sage since I was university, basically. So to get the opportunity to go there as a marketing assistant was amazing. I learned so much there. As Alan was just saying, that entry-level marketing position was massive. Yes, it wasn't hugely creative initially. There was a lot of invoice inputting. There was a lot of spell checking. There was a lot of lumping up posters around the building, managing print, things like that. But you get opportunities. It's all about what I found was, which everybody said, it's being genuine, being honest, being polite, being hardworking. And things will come your way. I found that actually working with the designer, there was a designer who worked at Sage called Andy, who'd been there within Sinfonia since like the mid-90s. He did all the what's on guides, all the print and everything, and I was able to work alongside him, learn some basic stuff on Photoshop. So basically I went from being a marketing assistant there in 2015 to becoming a coordinator, promoting the Popular and Contemporary program and coordinate the What's On guide. Till a restructure meant I left in 2017, but was lucky enough. It wasn't my first restructure. We'd already been through 2 there, and I'd been through a few before. So when you're talking about challenges and things that might get thrown your way, it's all about kind of believing in yourself in that respect. You are good enough. You are talented and you're valuable. If you believe in yourself, you'll take risks and opportunities, and they will kind of open themselves. What happened after the Sage, I mean, it wasn't great to leave there, but you've got to keep applying. I applied for loads of jobs between a couple of months, and it just so happened this job came up. And I think over the past couple of years, especially with the pandemic and everything, it's shown how lucky I was. So in my day-to-day role here, I now do everything from being basically communicating everything publicly. So everything goes out to social media, everything on the website, every press release, every bit of print. I design all our posters that we create for shows that we've got on. I design and create every What's On guide that goes out quarterly. I even program here as well. I run all the tickets. So everything marketing related, across the whole thing. The one thing I'd say is that I think it's from the marketing industry as well. There's a lot, especially in the culture sector. I think there should be differentiation between marketing roles, but there isn't. So generally, if you go into marketing, if you become a marketer at all in the culture sector, be prepared to know a bit about everything and be able to just kind of skill up. That's one thing I'd say. From my point of view, I'm constantly learning and then falling behind as you get busy because you're not keeping on top of it. The pandemic was actually weirdly great in a way, because there was actually a chance to step back from the day-to-day treadmill of getting information out there and constantly creating copy for this, that and the other, and posting things online for the next show and trying to sell the next ticket, to step back and kind of remember why you enjoy it and why you get something out of it, and tell a story and try and think about, okay, well, how can I get better? But one thing I'd say is, to echo pretty much everybody else in a way, is that because I'm fairly self-taught and didn't do a degree in any, I suppose English language has contributed a little bit to what I'm doing, but is kind of, it doesn't matter if you go into something which you don't want to do. I know Rachel mentioned that you spent years doing jobs that you had nothing to do with what you wanted to do, and obviously that's what I did too. But do that, make some money, do things that you don't want to do, but keep up a side hustle, do things even if it's just for yourself, write, keep a portfolio, listen to podcasts, keep a follow accounts which kind of inspire you. Like, anything can click at any moment, and if you've done all that, you're kind of going to be good to go. Clearly, but labor at the point about networking, but it works. I despise going to people I don't know and just introduce myself, but it does kind of make a difference. And even if it's over a period of time, it'll get easier. It's also about being genuine, helping out, and being honest. I know a few people in this room, but I'll be the first person to tell you I don't know what I'm doing at any given time. And everybody is kind of like that. But you've got to have the kind of powers of conviction to kind of go, well, you do really, but you're just trying to learn and you're just trying to get better. So, I mean, in terms of highlights and everything like that, I've been looking up who the sage, like obviously with jazz festivals, Americana festivals, and being able to kind of, the sage didn't record any of those or shoot video, and we convinced them to send a couple of us on a course to learn how to shoot basic video on a mobile phone in 2015, and we shot and edited festival videos, and that carried on after that point. So being able to interview artists and everything, that was invaluable and really exciting. The first beer festival, the first full beer festival I worked here, it was the last go at one of them. We needed to have an event here which we could hang our hat on to make money, because obviously as an income generator for a charity, it was important to have a community event which community engaged with the brand and the venue and the charity, which also kind of meant a lot to us, but also brought in some money. And we had one last shot to do after a couple of failed attempts, and that was in 2018. I worked alongside a colleague. I kind of managed the brand of that festival, the poster, the print run, the online presence, and it was a big success. It was a big it was a big success, and it's kind of kicked on from there. We haven't done it for 3 years, and I'm just getting ready to do that whole process again. I'm trying to remember how I did it. But you've got to, again, list the note and everything down, and being organized is going to help us do that. But essentially, what I'd say is that the career is not going to kick off at any given point, and it could happen at any time. And I think, and it'll evolve. So I think if it doesn't happen straight away, you're not quite sure, just keep going any kind of aspect of what gives you any kind of joy. And joy could be from people you work with, even if it's in an industry you're not interested in. It could be in a city you love working in, work for the joy that it gives you, and then at any given point be ready to take that opportunity and believe in yourself when it goes.
So I'm Cheryl. My pronouns are she, her. I am a white woman with quite long light brown hair now, because I haven't had it cut for ages, wearing a flowery sweatshirt, sitting in my workroom. And I'll probably come back to this because I tend to work wherever I need to go, wherever I need to work. And my style of working is mainly on tablets. So my studio I kind of take with me wherever I go, which is great. And kind of when I show you a little bit of the kind of backstory to me, it'll probably kind of see how that kind of has reached a natural point, being able to work like that. This is me. I'll come back to this picture as well. So this drawing of me was probably done about, I don't know, 20 years ago. So I haven't changed much. Yes, I'm an animator. And what I do, so I make independent animated films. So it's a big mix of things. And I work with schools, colleges and universities. I do some commercial and television things. I do animated stuff for online, which has kind of gone up now in recent times. I work a lot with communities and I do arts residencies. The picture is me on the side there, so working on tablets. So that's my thing these days. So I was always interested in animation. And this little film on the side, which I will turn down, is one of the first films or one of the early films that I'd made with my brother in the 80s. So I used to like drawing and making things. I made animated films using old video camera and toys and models. So this is using Transformers figures, and there's a bit of plasticine in there. I don't know where the transfer, there it is. They were perfect for animation. So this was using an old video camera. You had to press record quickly 2 times in order to get about 8 frames a second. And cotton wool, always great for looking like it's an explosion. So then I used to work with the drama group at school on set and set design and set building and prop sound and lighting. So I used to do a lot of that. So this is one of my first films, which I won't play the whole thing. But yeah, so I thought I'd put in a little bit about influences and things, because I think a lot of people have mentioned it, and I'll probably echo what a lot of people have said, that you're continuously learning. This was one of my favourite characters as a kid in an animation. So it was Medusa from Clash of the Titans by Ray Harryhausen. And last year, I managed to get to Edinburgh to see the Ray Harryhausen exhibition. And this was obviously the highlight of my trip. There's only one figure. Apparently, I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but she does get her head chopped off, which I'm really not happy about. Apparently they had to chop her head off and put it back on. So this is just fantastic for me. The thing that I kind of want to point out with throwing this picture in is I think it's really important, and I've learned this a little bit more. I've learned a bit more about why this is important in the past couple of years, to kind of keep up with, for me, other animators, what they are doing. Not necessarily people who I know, but just animation in general, knowing what people are doing. And I think that applies to other art forms as well, knowing what other people within your area are doing. And also, I suppose for me, because I collaborate a lot with other artists, knowing what other artists are doing. So it's, and I think another reason why I've put this in is it's kind of important to recognize the inspiration from them, not necessarily you're all in competition, but it's the inspiration. And I almost want to create work that pays tribute to how inspired I've been by that other person's work. I think that's the important thing. So I watch other people's animation, and if I see something that I'm fascinated by, because sometimes I'll go, oh man, how did they do that? I want to kind of not necessarily copy that. I want to go out and make something that's almost in honor of that. So I think it's really important to keep up with what's going on in your area, not just in animation, but in the arts in general. So further on about how I ended up here, on the right-hand side there's a picture of a couple of coconuts with some faces on. And I think it would be fair to point out now that animation can be with anything. And I'm quite keen on, whenever I talk to anyone about animation, working in animation or what you can do, like any career, there's different areas you can work in. So there's working digitally, there's working online, there's working computer, there's working in kind of a big mainstream sort of feature film setting, there's working on independent small scale short films, there's working on animation for advertising, there's animation for installation in galleries and museums and educational work. So animation can go into so many places and in so many different styles. So this one, I've been invited a couple of times to a film festival in Skopelos in Greece. And so this was a young people's film festival, and we grabbed some coconuts, and these are talking coconuts. And again, I'm working on tablet. The thing is, and I'll probably keep going back to it. So I used to use that old video camera, but now I can do everything on this tablet. I can edit, I can draw, I can record sound all in one place. So how I got into this sort of thing. So after school, which careers advice was a bit not too good, but luckily I had quite a lot of support and inspiration from family, and I suppose primary school was quite supportive of me being quite creative. I think in secondary school they were just a little bit unsure what to do with us. I did a lot of work on the school newspaper doing their comic strips and things like that. So after school I went and did BTEC in graphic design at college, which was great because it gave me an opportunity to look at photography, illustration, advertising, whole host of things. Then I took a year out because I wanted to kind of build a bit of a portfolio. I've met artists who haven't gone to university, they've gone a different route. And I think it's great that people have the opportunities to find a way into something different ways. I don't think you need to go to university, especially now that it's so expensive. I think if I had my time now, I might be looking at a different way to kind of get into that animation sector or the creative sector, which didn't involve spending a fortune in university. So I went to university in Farnham in Surrey to study animation. When I came back, I worked with a theatre company on their advertising, graphic design, promo material, all that sort of thing. In 2001, I went freelance, and then I went back to Northumbria University. So I went back to university, I think it was 2004-05, to do another degree in it was in media practice, but it was focused on animated documentary. My work had changed a lot since my time in Surrey, and I wanted to kind of explore that. And that's just me want to continuously develop and review things. And it doesn't always mean going back to university, but at that time it did. Challenges. First, I had a spelling mistake on here, and the first one said, I can be unpredictable. So I quickly put the T on there. But I thought that is kind of true both ways. So work and freelance can be unpredictable. Yes, a lot. And someone said earlier, would you like a job with a regular income? And I said no, because at the moment I'm feeling okay. But there are occasions where I go, I've wondered if I should get a job with a regular income. It can be difficult working on your own. Sometimes it's hard to focus, especially if you've got something to watch on Netflix or you want to do something else. So I can be easily distracted. So I have to find ways to stay focused. I daydream a lot, but it's productive daydreaming. Rejection, yes, the amount of times that I kind of fall in love with a project and I apply for it and then I don't get it and I feel heartbroken and I have to just think, I've just got to get on with it and just carry on. Networking, I know people have mentioned it a lot. I've put it on here as a challenge, but maybe in many different ways. So if you're a bit of an introvert, it's difficult. But sometimes it can be difficult because finding the time. Sometimes, and I find these days, I've kind of changed a little bit. I'd rather meet 2, 3, 4 people and know that there's opportunities there to meet everyone, if you know what I mean. But the problem is, how do I know who those people are? So I kind of try and keep an ear to the ground a lot as to, oh, I like you, or I think we could work together, or I fancy doing something with this person. And then I kind of try and sort of like sidle up to them in a kind of social media style fashion. Not that I'm stalking people on social media, but anyway, But yes, I've done a lot of networking via social media, and I've ended up with quite a few projects with people who I haven't met in real life, but we've kind of got in touch via Twitter and done things across Twitter. But, holidays, I know people have mentioned holidays. When I first started, when I wanted to go freelance, I did a lot of courses in like business because I was never quite confident in maths. So I really wanted to understand accounting and bookkeeping and things. So I went and did a lot of courses. And I always remember one of the bits of advice that a man gave who had his own business. He said, when you get your new diary, put your holidays in there straight away. And I thought, that's a great idea. And that lasted for about 2 years. So it's great being freelance. It means that it's tricky sometimes to have a holiday, but it does mean that, if I go out with mates on a Sunday to some sort of weekend event, I don't have to worry if I don't book anything in on Monday, and they can all be like, oh, got to be working. So anyway, yeah. So there's kind of positives and negatives to everything. It's how you kind of take animation techniques that I use. I'm kind of jumping back in time a little bit. So I work a lot with traditional animation, which is like drawn, cut out and model. And I like to experiment with a lot of materials and mix it with digital media. And on the side there, you've got a project that I did at Art Centre Washington, where we were working on Lightbox. It was really nice. I always quite like playing around with any technology, any bits of junk, anything, because it's all a big experiment. And I think my thing is kind of experimental animation. I do like to see the presence of who's made it, whether it's like seeing their fingerprints in something or knowing that I can see what this material is. So I just love the process of animation. I know I sound really like obsessed with it. I probably am. This is me working on a tablet. Like I said, I work a lot with it, and I often am supervised by Dinah, the cat. I am a big fan of having pet close at hand. Keeps me kind of not so much calm, but it's just nice to have a little chat with the cat whilst I'm trying to do things. This app is one of my favourite apps to work in. It's Procreate, has a great animation thing. It means I can draw and animate and edit all on the tablet. I use a lot of other people's drawings. I think I've got some coming up. I'll go through these. So the duck on the left was with a respite care centre, exploring their experiences. But the images on the right hand side, they were all artwork by young people, which is being digitised. So then I transfer it to the tablet and animate from there. So this is work with, I think these are all with communities, but the one on the bottom is a little bit of a commission project. The one on the left here is a projection that was with Eastern Creates. And then I've got a couple of projects on the other side that were artwork by various groups and young people. Some more of me working with a group. The top one on the left-hand side was with Pennines area of outstanding natural beauty and geophysics, not geophysics, like geology stuff. I quite like the idea that I can take animation and I can work and do with other professionals outside of the creative sector. It's quite nice to collaborate with people from like Durham University or the other universities. Headway Arts, I think that one is at the bottom left. And then the other one is the Cine Window in Winsford in Cheshire. They're a great place to present work. So that was a group in their library. I'll skip my film because I know I'm going to run out of time. Career highlights. This is kind of a weird one because I think sometimes it's weird to kind of blow your own trumpet. It's quite nice to share and show work, wherever it may be. I always quite like sharing stuff. Discovering a new idea to explore is always a thing. So I've got a few things here that are these are like ongoing things because I don't really have one thing in particular. These all happen regularly. Being recognised by peers, so it's nice when people kind of give you a pat on the back. Collaborating, I know people have mentioned that a lot. It's great to collaborate with other people. And I always kind of pick their brains and I look at how other people work and I think, how can I combine that with animation? So I always want to challenge that process of animation. And anytime I do a bit of animation that I'm really pleased with, which I think this next bit is, I did this recently for a project. I just love how that I could just sit and watch it for blooming ages. Just love animated movement. I know that you're probably not all as obsessed as I am, so I better skip on. Some advice. The one big bit of advice is don't doubt yourself. If you're determined to follow a goal, then do it. There's a picture of me there, drawn by someone, but it looks like I've got a knife in my hand, but that's a cup of tea. If you're determined to follow a goal, then do it. But don't be scared to adapt it if it's not working out the way you originally thought and your ideas change or your motivations change or other unexpected opportunities come along. Don't feel you've got to stick rigidly to an idea. I know of a few people who have been absolutely focused on being in animation and determined, and then have just found that it's just not working out. And they've even foregone opportunities that would have led them in a different direction and would have been amazing, because they've been so determined to stick to this idea, this goal, and eventually have kind of not. I don't want people to think they've given up on it. I think you just got to adapt, and I think there's an important thing to do with your mental health. If things change, if opportunities come along, then be prepared to adapt and just go in a different direction. That one, I'll not play this one. This was a really nice little film from lockdown, because thinking about adapting to change. I worked with someone up in Weardale who I knew, and she sent me a load of little pictures in the post, and then I animated them, and it's just her house in the changing seasons as she watched things change. It's just a nice little animation. And that's me.
Hello, hi everyone, my name is Maisie. I'm 17 and I'm in year 12 doing my A-levels. So I do not know what I want to do as a job. I've always felt a lot of pressure to be able to say what job I want to have in the future, from friends and family and teachers, but I'm realizing it doesn't actually matter. ? Right now I'm thinking I want to go down a more sciencey route, so I'm planning to study physics at university. But while I used to think that meant I could literally never do anything creative ever again in my life, I understand now that's actually not how it works, and I need to chill out a bit. My dad worries a lot about missed opportunities and what he refers to as closed doors. So he said that by not choosing an essay subject at A-level, I was cutting off all possibility of doing a career that would involve writing. That freaked me out. But I've come to realise that the doors aren't shut. They're just a bit stiff. Maybe you need to ask someone to help you open them. The idea of a door is literally that it closes and opens. So it's okay to go back to a decision you made and try something else out. I don't blame my dad for being really worried about me making the wrong decisions, but maybe there's no such thing. Decisions can feel like really scary events, and it's not like they won't have consequences. There's no set way to deal with them or a checklist to follow. People say, listen to your gut, but I cannot hear my gut. How am I supposed to know what to do? I used to worry a lot about that, and I felt like I could be messing up my whole future if I picked the wrong option. But there's rarely a right and wrong option. And even if you do pick the wrong option, you can just go back, retrace your steps, and find your way to that previous door. Dust it off and walk through. I am growing comfortable into feeling, growing into feeling comfortable with my decisions not being permanent. This mindset is surprisingly scary because my school's always made me feel like these big life decisions are irreversible, and I will decide my entire future when I'm 16 years old. But that just doesn't make sense, and it can't be good for you. Our lives don't need to revolve around what we do for work. I think it's a shift we need to make as a society away from saying I'm a writer or I'm going to become a writer into I write. Our hobbies and skills are just as important to who we are as people as what we do to make money, and often more important. So building on this, the best thing we can do for our futures isn't to make decisions and plans, although don't get me wrong, I love a good to-do list. But it's also handy to develop skills and experience. Through Mortalfalls, I've developed my skills in performing, working with others, communication, confidence, and even writing, despite my lack of essay-based subjects at A-level. And this means I feel more confident about applying to university, in interviews, meeting new people, and giving talks. All of which will help me find the best possible way to earn money for myself. I think there's something about creativity in general that requires such blunt bravery. To work so intensely and then project that personal piece of art into the world is terrifying, but it builds your character in a way that sitting exams and listening to personal statement advice couldn't, at least from my experience. And that's the reason I never want to stop being creative. And I don't think anyone should. Even if it's not your job, you should still have an outlet and focus on building a wide range of skills. Why wouldn't you? But it's not that simple. I didn't have as much time for drama when I was doing my GCSEs, and since I've started sixth form, schoolwork takes up a lot of my time. So my tip is to tell yourself that you need to do at least one creative thing every day, whether that's cooking a fancy meal, writing a journal entry, or doing a 4-hour one-man rendition of Macbeth. We should all keep creativity in our lives, even in a tiny way, because that's how we grow as people. It's how we improve our chances of a successful career through confidence and communication. Yeah, I hope that was helpful, but if it wasn't, that's okay. You can go and make a different decision later on.